Okay, guys, here we go with part 2 to 14.2. Guys, I want to start out with going into the successes and failures in Cuba. Kennedy had, well, he's basically 50% at this point when it comes to Cuba. I'm going to start out with talking about the Bay of Pigs. Guys, this was a colossal failure. Um, what he did is he tried to arm a bunch of Cubans to overthrow or stay in charge, stay in power. But what happened is he let all those people that he tried to train and help. He never came. He never had United States of America's army or the CIA, the covert fighters, go in and help out. So what happened was Fidel Castro um, wins, and it looks like we absolutely left our friends out to dry. It was a terrible situation, and quite frankly, that we have had absolutely horrible relations with Cuba ever since then. They're a communist country. If we would have stepped up back then, we would have been able to stop communism from being right at our foot, our back door. Cuba is only 90 miles away from Key West, not that far from Miami. It's a terrible situation. But he did have something that turned out to be really, really good, is the fact that Russia was putting nuclear weapons in Cuba. So what Kennedy did is he made a blockade. There's no way we're going to allow nuclear weapons, especially from Russia, the Soviet Union at this time. We're not going to allow the Soviet Union to have nuclear weapons in Cuba, which could easily hit a large portion of the United States. This was the closest we have come to a nuclear war, and the closest we've been to World War III since the end of World War II. Guys, it was a very tense situation. As I've talked about before, when some country blockades another country, that is an act of war. Basically, what they're saying is nothing comes in, nothing leaves. And there's really not a whole lot Cuba could do about it. But Russia wasn't stopping. They were bringing ships, they were bringing weapons to put into Cuba so they could attack the United States, quite frankly. We had that blockade. They stopped. Russia stopped and turned around and went back home, which was a great deal. Okay, next we're going to move into President Johnson. Guys, we could talk a long time on this here too, in reference to his Great Society, which is basically welfare. Once again, he wants people to get paid for doing nothing. It's a real shame, but that's what he did. Also, guys, we could talk a long time about the war in Vietnam. It was the longest war we had until just recently, when Iraq and Afghanistan have the war on terror is now the longest war we've had. A lot of great stuff there. Please continue to read that. Guys, I'm going to talk about Nixon for a little bit. Nixon's going to be remembered as the first president to resign. As basically what he did is he quit. It's unfortunate because he did an awful lot of good things for America and for the world. One of them is that he opened up China to trade. China is a huge country and have a lot of people, and when we open up trade with them and start trading back and forth, that really helps our economy. And so that was a great deal with helping our economy as well. Unfortunately, he did a couple bad things and he lied about it. He was caught. He deleted some tapes, kind of basically destroyed some evidence, and so the Congress was going to impeach him. So he decided to resign instead. Next, we're going to talk about Gerald Ford, who was the vice president when Nixon resigned. So we all know what that means. When the president is no longer there, either he dies, gets killed, resigns, something happens to him. The vice president is next in line. He became president. It's kind of interesting because the vice president before Ford, he also quit, Spiro Agnew, and so he was the first president never to be elected. So it was kind of interesting, there. Okay, next, guys, we're going to go into President Carter. In my opinion, one of the top 3-4 worst presidents we've ever had. Just an absolute terrible leader, very spineless, didn't have much of a backbone. He basically allowed hostages to be taken from in Iran. Terrible, for over a year. 55 Americans were held hostage. They weren't released until President Reagan came into office after Carter. Also, what Carter did, well, he gave up the Panama Canal. Remember how we were in charge of it, even though it's in Panama, but that was something that we owned, we had control of. Well, Carter gave that back. Um, so those are just a couple things, guys. I wish I could spend more time on this, but please, please, please take your time on Comprehension Check 14B. Read the entire sentence. A couple of them have different, a couple parts to them. Guys, number 4, you know the deal. Write down the word liberal, then dash, and describe what it is. Skip a line, conservative, dash, what it is, and go from there. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Take care. Bye-bye.